skiers on the slopes today, their fun began by answering a bell, a school bell that first introduced them to Nic Fiore, the director of the Yosemite Ski School. So perhaps today you, and maybe you would like to have a personal preview of how Nic Fiore teaches skiing and how easy it is and how much fun. It all starts very simply by a simple walking slide. And the way Nic puts it, walking on skis is just about the same as walking without skis, only you don't lift your skis off the snow, and you use your poles to help propel you along.
I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Jack Peroni. I've been in the ski business since the beginning of time. And I was advantaged to start skiing right after World War II when Badger Pass opened, and was one of the black dogs from Fresno that used to try and cheat with the tickets and speed too fast every weekend coming up. But I met Nic the first year he was there, and we were just high school and college kids trying to learn how to do better in the Sunday slalom and the flying 50. And we didn't know that Nic noticed us, Fresno kids, you know. We were kind of strangers to the park. We weren't there all the time. And one day he came over and says, "Okay, you dumb kids, I meet you at 12 o'clock, I'll show you how to run some gates." And from that day on, we were friends for life. And I've been in the ski business in Fresno since 1950, and of course skied here every winter. To 58, we started skiing in Sierra Summit, and I had the misfortune of opening the ski shop at Sierra Summit, so that took me away from Badger Pass. But I still come back at least 2 or 3 times every year. And one thing I'd like to mention, Nic's wife, Midge, when I was a college student, I can remember going through the cashier line 10 or 12 times just to be close to her. And she was quite a looker in those days. And then I was trying to lost my place. The many times that we had together at my shop, every fall I'd look forward to the day in November when Nic would bring his new ski boots and his new skis down, and we'd spend the afternoon fitting the boots and fitting the skis. Matter of fact, he coined a phrase they use in Fresno. I was his master booter. And we'd spend hours, and we'd every now and then go to the restaurant, I forgot the name, Ripe Tomato, not Ripe Tomato, but the green restaurant with all the vegetables like Mike and he would go to. And we loved to go do that for lunch also. And thank you very much.
A year may have more than one season, yet I can remember but one, when rivers and lakes are a-freezing, and the mountains in whiteness are spun, when snowflakes are falling so fast, and winter has come then at last, to boards upon cold powder snow, yo-ho, that have to be a song that I know. Two boards upon cold powder snow, yo-ho, what else does a man need to know?
Good afternoon. I'm a McKay major and the oldest grandchild in this stage. He's the youngest. Our grandparents were Bream and Goomba to us. Midge received that name when I tried to say grandmother at a young age. It obviously didn't work out too well, but the name stuck. And Goomba is Italian for old buddy, which was obviously very appropriate. I can only imagine how many stories will be told today about my grandparents. And as you can guess, I actually have a couple. I asked Nick one time if they were ever snowed in overnight at Badger. He had mentioned once or twice. Then he told me that my grandmother and him were snowed in Alta for more than a month. Actually, he said, "Hey, well, you know, your grandmother and I, we were snowed in Alta for a month." But this wasn't a big deal to him because this was just one of the many unbelievable tales he had. And I feel blessed to have spent a significant amount of time with my grandparents. Tonight I would ride the Via bus from Reset a couple times a month to spend a weekend in the valley. We would accompany my grandmother on our daily walks around the village. She would take us to Pioneer Cemetery in the Indian Village. Time was spent enjoying the beauty of nature and the peacefulness. Times with Nick were a little higher paced, and there were many trips to Tuolumne. I would accompany him on his rounds, as he had to know everything that was going on at all the camps. He would take me on his so-called shortcuts around the High Sierra, and they didn't seem too short to me, and I actually think he took me on the long way just to toughen me up. In winter, we were always up early for trips to Badger, and as you can imagine, many of the grandkids were on skis very early on. He would put us in ski school much of the time, as there was no way we were going to have anything less than perfect form. One day, a friend and I decided to ditch ski school mid-session. That move didn't go over very well with Nick. And I don't know any French cuss words, but I'm fairly certain the lecture included some. So as you grow older, you seem to appreciate these memories more and more. While the passing of close grandparents is profoundly sad, I cannot help but smile when I think of it. They were the catalyst for so many wonderful childhood memories, and they have touched many lives in similar ways. So, excuse me. We will miss them dearly, but we relish in the thought that they add their names to the book of great Yosemite legends. So, thank you.
I was 5 years old when my grandmother Breen came to live with us. Goomba would fly down to Florida and visit her, and he would always tell her jokes to make her laugh. The only one I'm allowed to tell is the one about the 85-year-old ski instructor who was going to marry the beautiful 18-year-old model. The ski instructor went to the doctor for the pre-wedding checkup, and the doctor said, "You know, the honeymoon could be fatal." The old ski instructor said, "Well, doctor, if she dies, she dies." I don't get it, but Goomba always laughed so hard at his own jokes that made us laugh too. I spent every day with my grandmother, and she was my best friend. She taught me how to draw, and she always had time to hear about my day. Her favorite book was The Secret Garden, and her favorite food was lobster. She had beautiful blue eyes and looked like my sister Calder when she was young. I hope my grandparents can see us all today and know how much they are loved. Thank you all for sharing this day with us.
Hey, my name's Brian Shore, and I worked with Nic Fiore for a lot of years, starting in the early 90s. And I remember this one time, I was the waiter in the side hall, and Nick came in early one morning and related a memorable story to me. I'm going to try to do it justice here. Well, there was one day, I came home to my tent, and there was a porcupine, right there in the doorway. After the third day of this, I was kind of, upset. So, true story, I picked up a pine cone and threw it at it. The pine cone stuck right to it. For 3 days, that porcupine went around the tent with the pine cone stuck to its ass. True story. Thank you.
Yosemite. My father was George Oliver, my mom Dee Oliver. My dad worked for the company, Yosemite Park and Curry Company. He was an executive in the office in charge of sales and transportation. And my mom managed first the old gift shop in Yosemite Lodge and then the new one. Well, here's the story. I was just in grade school when Nic came the first time to teach skiing. And so after that first winter, my dad was taking Nic back down to Merced to catch the train to go back to Montreal. And he said, Nic, why don't you stay and work this summer and work for me in transportation? And Nic said, I think I will. And he did, and that's how he stayed. And Dr. Wigg, who's my dentist in Mariposa and family, were good friends of Nic's. And he arranged to have my dad and I come up to celebrate Dad's 99th birthday. And we had lunch at the Iwani, and Nic was there, and of course he rode over on his bike. When I celebrated my dad's 100th birthday in Mariposa at the Senior Center, we had a wonderful party. Nic was there, and my dad was just thrilled. So Nic gets up and he says, well, George is the one that talked me into staying, and that's how I came to work in Yosemite.
Well, Chris, you know, I don't want to talk about myself, but I used to be a professional bicycle rider. And when I arrived here in Yosemite, my first trip, I went and cycled to Big Trees. And in those days, I had my track bike, which was fixed gear, no brakes. The rims were wood, and the tires were so shellacked on the rims. Yeah, so that they're glued, because if one of those tires rolls out of the rim while you're coming down, you're going right by St. Peter, and that's it. Right? Oh yeah, always from the valley to Big Trees and then back. And then I managed Mariposa Grove Big Trees Lodge for a couple of seasons, and I used to ride my bike there all the time. Yeah. My bike and I were never apart.
Well, I came to Yosemite first in 1948. I drove into Yosemite Valley at night, and of course I went to sleep. And then the next morning I got up and I walked outside and I looked around at the canyon walls glistening with snow, and I said, gee, this is great, but where do the beginners ski? Well, that's just one of the stories. I started, of course, in 1948 with Loogie Foger at the ski school at Badger Pass. And at that time I thought, well, I'll probably just spend 4 months here, just a winter, and go back to the Laurentians in Quebec, which is where I'm from. But I thought, well, I'll probably be happier at a bigger mountain because, well, Badger's pretty small. But anyway, I spent the winter there, and I fell in love with Badger Pass. And I tell you, I fell in love with Yosemite and the people that work here. And over the years, that love just grew and grew. And, well, I'm still here. And I'll always be here. Always.